Thor's journey to the land of giants, Jotunheim, was filled with adventure, challenges, and illusions. Before Thor and Loki set out for Jotunheim, they stopped at a farm where Tialfi and his sister Röskva lived. Thor slaughtered his goats for food and allowed everyone to eat their meat. However, Loki, ever the trickster, whispered to Tialfi that if he ate the marrow from the goat's bones, he could become as strong as Thor. Thor had explicitly instructed everyone to avoid harming the goat's bones and to place them back in their skins after the meal. But Tialfi, tempted by the promise of great strength, broke one of the bones and ate the marrow. The next morning, Thor used his hammer to revive his goats, but one of them was limping. Furious, Thor demanded to know who had broken the bones, threatening punishment. Tialfi confessed and offered to serve Thor for life to avoid harm to his family. Thor accepted, taking both Tialfi and Röskva with him to Jotunheim. Thor, Loki, and Tialfi set out for Jotunheim. As they traveled, the weather grew cold, and they sought shelter. They found a strange structure with no windows or doors, and decided to rest inside. Throughout the night, they were repeatedly awoken by loud noises and tremors. When morning came, Thor ventured outside and discovered a massive giant, far bigger than anything he had ever seen. The giant, who introduced himself as Skrymir, greeted Thor in a friendly manner. It turned out that the place they had slept in was actually Skrymir's glove. Skrymir offered to travel with them and share food, but when Thor tried to open the giant's food sack, he couldn't untie the knot no matter how hard he tried. In frustration, Thor struck Skrymir with his hammer while he slept, but the giant barely noticed. Their journey continued, and they eventually arrived at a fortress called Utgard, which Loki identified as the home of the giants. They entered the hall where the giant king, Utgard Loki, and his followers were seated. The king immediately recognized Thor and Loki, and to stay in the fortress, he challenged them to display their abilities. Loki claimed he could eat faster than anyone. He was pitted against a giant, but despite both finishing their food quickly, the giant won because he also ate the bones. It turned out that Loki's opponent was fire, which consumed everything in its path. Tialfi boasted that he was the fastest runner. The giants chose their weakest runner to race against him, yet Tialfi lost all 3 races. His opponent was actually Thought, which is faster than anything in existence. Thor, confident in his own strength, claimed he could drink more than anyone. The giants presented him with a large drinking horn. Though Thor drank deeply, the level of the liquid barely decreased. Unbeknownst to Thor, the horn was connected to the sea, and no matter how much he drank, it replenished itself. Thor had actually lowered the sea's level significantly, but he didn't realize it at the time. Next, the giants challenged Thor to lift a large cat. Thor tried with all his might but could only lift one of its paws. The cat was actually the world-serpent, Jormungandr, which encircles the earth. Thor had managed to lift part of this massive creature, an incredible feat in itself. Finally, Thor asked to wrestle. The giants declined to wrestle him directly, instead suggesting he wrestle an old woman. Thor agreed but was eventually overpowered by the frail-looking woman. She represented old age, which no one can defeat no matter their strength. At the end of the challenges, the giant king revealed the truth. All of the contests had been illusions. The giant Skrymir was actually Utgard Loki in disguise, and he had used magic to deceive Thor and his companions. The food sack Thor couldn't open had been enchanted, and when Thor struck Skrymir with his hammer, the giant had placed a mountain between them, absorbing the blow. Loki's opponent was fire. Tialfi had raced against Thought itself, and Thor had unknowingly drunk from the sea, lifted the world-serpent, and wrestled old age. Utgard Loki admitted that Thor had come much closer to victory than they had expected, and the giants were in awe of his strength.